That sort of touches on a question I had, which was actually this white roof project is probably, I would imagine that's going to save the university a whole lot of money in coming years. And with a lot of green technology, it seems like there may be an upfront cost, but in the long run, it saves almost any business, any group, so much money in the long run to just have it be more, have their system, their infrastructure be more efficient, basically. Are there reasons that you could maybe elaborate on for us that we don't see more of that? Or that we, why is it that the university doesn't, or other groups don't just sort of do this naturally?
It seems like you would flock to it if it's going to save you a lot of money.
Exactly. Why does it take a push from the Center for Sustainability or from SAGE to actually get that to happen?
Right. Well, one of the major issues is budgets and annual cycles. And if we have a budget that's within 1 year that needs to be spent out within that year, it's really hard to think long term about, okay, let's save this budget for next year. Let's save this money for next year and save up to get the energy saving technology that's going to eventually save us money in the long run, which is why the green fee comes in so handily here, is because that allows us to have that capital to make the investment for the things that we haven't been able to invest in because we're restricted by the amount of money that we have. So it's a matter of short-term versus long-term thinking. We can only see tomorrow in our eyes, and it's hard to plan ahead for the future. So you got to have the funds to do it, and I think that we're going to be able to make that happen more readily now. We're already in great shape here on our campus. As you probably know, we've been named one of the top green universities in the country the last 2 years. So very proud to be at that point.
Now, with the continued advancements in green technology, everyone always says that, the first generation of almost any piece of technology in comparison to later generations is just terrible. And I own an Android cell phone, so I believe that. As the, solar panels and green technology like them, as time passes, they're going to make improvements and they will get cheaper. But not to get too personal, but my dad works for Georgia Power. And he looked into getting solar panels put on our house, which not a giant house, just a medium-sized house. And it would be like $15,000 to get them installed. And that's pretty steep. Mm-hmm. And unless you're willing to put down a serious investment, and that's just one house that we live in. I have no idea how much it would cost to coat the campus in solar panels, but I imagine it's a pretty large upfront investment. Is that what kind of makes it so hard to transition to? Because right now the technology is so new that it's just so expensive that you can't just get it on the spur of the moment.
Yeah, that's insightful. The costs initially are high. It's going to pay for itself in the long run, but as the demand increases, the cost is going to go down for these things like solar panels. And in fact, the cost of solar panels has gone down tremendously over the past 5 years. So since we've waited this long, now we're to the point where it's going to be more affordable. We actually have plans to have solar panels on the new biology building. So that will be our first building on campus to incorporate solar panels. It'll be used for heating water and eventually for the electricity in the building too.
What other appliances and stuff like that are we planning on putting into the new biology building that is eco-friendly besides the solar panels?
There's a lot of daylighting in the building, so lots of sun energy instead of
kind of like the rack, how there's just walls of windows instead of there being like a bunch of fluorescent lights just inside the building. It's a huge just wall of thick glass, so it's insulated, and the windows are tinted, so it's not like just really, really bright inside. But for the main corridors, the lights don't come on until later in the day or unless it's cloudy outside, because you should be able to see the whole inside of the building. I know that some of the professors are calling it Candyland because it's going to be awesome. And I graduated before the building opens, and I'm not happy about it.
You'll have to come back and visit.
They're almost like, you should be a grad student. I was like, nah, I'll be okay.
Yeah, one of the other things about the new biology building is that a lot of the materials have come from within a closer radius. then so we're not getting the materials from around the world. They're from within a 100-mile or 500-mile radius, which helps to decrease the transportation costs and make the building materials more sustainable.
Aaron, did you have something?
I was just going to say, while we're off the record, for the record, natural lighting is also a lot better looking.
Mm-hmm.
It improves
Aesthetic quality does count for something, because the biology building now is a dungeon. Like it looks like a jail from the inside. It's just brick and fluorescent lights everywhere.
I have been in the biology building for 15 years and I have never had a window. I'm a field ecologist and I haven't had a window for 15 years. I get one finally.
I think before Dr. Rosta worked in that building, he might have been a happy person.
It is a dungeon. Record.
Okay.
So, on the subject of developments we're making at the university, our new biology building is going to be a sort of a green building. And could you tell us, sort of in general, a little bit about what a building being green certified sort of entails? And we just sort of spoke a little bit off the record, and you mentioned that one of the big steps is that the biology building's materials will actually be more localized in their production than you would normally expect with a building of its scale.
Right. So there's a lot of steel in the building. The steel comes from within a 500-mile radius, and that's an important feature of a LEED building, is that that the materials are from more local sources, that they're not coming from around the world. So that reduces transportation costs and it makes it a more sustainable building. One of the other features in that building is that it's going to have a lot of daylighting, so we won't need to turn the lights on because there will be windows everywhere, which will be fabulous for those of us who have been in the old biology building for a long time.
It's I just felt it was really interesting in our conversation just earlier to point out that part of it being a green building is it goes beyond its architectural design to even
aesthetic,
where you get the materials, and some of the aesthetic can be affected.
Kind of going back to what you said about where the materials come from, that kind of leads into the next thing about green transportation. Now, the buses that run on campus cut down not only a lot of traffic. Now, you could make the argument that the buses on campus, they all have their own, little problems, but public transportation is more eco-friendly than driving your own car around. With, I guess, once we get electric cars more up to speed, do you think we're going to have to adapt public transportation more? Do you think that with the advent of electric cars, do you think that it will be greener to drive electric cars, or do we also upgrade public transportation to be more eco-friendly as well?
Right. With electric cars, the critical thing is, where is that electricity coming from? So at present, the majority of electricity in the state of Georgia comes from coal. So if you have an electric car and drive an electric car in the state of Georgia, the electricity that's being used to run your car is being generated from coal, releasing mercury, releasing pollutants, and so on and so forth.
So you're driving a coal-powered car, you're just calling it by the middleman.
That's right. If we can power electric cars with sustainable sources, if we can power them with solar energy,
wind energy, whatever.
Exactly, hydropower, and some of these new alternative energy sources, then we can say that it's actually sustainable. But to answer your question about public transportation, I think anytime public transportation is a great solution. When you can get 60 people in one vehicle instead of 60 people driving separate vehicles, we're in a lot better shape in terms of the fuel used and the pollutants released and so forth. We used to use a compressed natural gas buses on our campus, and we've recently switched to ultra low sulfur diesel, which can also be flexed to biofuels. So we could actually use biofuels in our buses on campus.
Are the buses we use on campus currently less likely to explode than the natural gas-powered vehicles that we previously had here on campus?
Hold on. That was a small electrical thing.
I decline to comment.
With our apologies to Dr. Keel. If he listens to this show, we're all fired. Not you.
For the record, we're just going to go ahead and say that we assume he has no jurisdiction over the decision of what the buses are, where they run, or what they use.